Hi guys, Craig here. Welcome to another edition of the podcast, Tell Craig Your Story. Today I will be speaking to Newcastle Knights legend Marc Glanville. Now Marc is born in Wagga in Australia. He's currently working with Good Sports. It's a drug and alcohol program. Marc is also a part of the commentating team for the Newcastle Knights on Triple M Radio. He is Australian schoolboy representative. He has represented New South Wales country, and he played with St George, but he's most famous for his 181 games with the Newcastle Knights. His Premiership win in '97 with the Newcastle Knights, that was his last game. And then he went on to play with Leeds Rhinos for 2 seasons. And we talk about his career and the amazing '97 Grand Final. And with me being a huge Newcastle Knights fan, that was a great honour to have a chat with Marc Glanville. But before we go, please go to our website. We are on Podbean. Tell Craig Your Story at podbean.com. We're also on all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, VK for our Russian listeners, and WeChat for our Chinese listeners at Tell Craig Your Story. And we have a link tree there which tells you where all Tell Craig Your Story podcast is streaming. All right, here we go. This is my chat with Marc Glanville on Tell Craig Your Story podcast. Hey Marc, how you doing today?
Very well, thanks, Craig.
First up, I wanted to ask. I ask everybody this first question recently. How's everything going with the coronavirus with you? Has it stopped you doing work? Obviously, with your radio and your sideline eye, that's stopped. But how are your family and you know what have you been doing in this period?
Yeah, no, family's all good. We're all surviving and okay. Haven't been too many cases in Newcastle and the Hunter. I think there's only been a couple of hundred. Yes, which has been pretty good. And looking forward to the government relaxing more restrictions, really. So. But yeah, working. I've still been working at home and in the office a bit. So my office, I work out of Hunter New England Health or Population Health in Newcastle, which is out at Wallsend. So I come into the office pretty much each day. So it hasn't really changed too much for me.
Yeah. So you're able to
can't go to the pub, mate.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think they've opened that out now as well.
Yeah,
you can go to the bars now. So. That's a good thing, but so what are you currently doing at the moment? I do believe it's Good Sports.
Yeah. So
can you tell us a little bit about that?
I work for the Alcohol and Drug Foundation, and one of the programs I work on is a program called Good Sports, which is an accreditation program that's aimed at local sporting clubs around managing alcohol responsibly, and also around having illegal drug policies and those sort of things. So I've been doing that for about the last 13 years, so I've been doing it a while, but really enjoy it, and get to meet with a lot of volunteers that are tied up with local sporting clubs, which is great.
Yeah, right. So have you had anything to do with the recent sort of scandal with Bronson Cherry, like with his sort of...
No, I haven't, only from the point of view that, we sort of tried a couple of years ago, or few years ago now, around trying to get the NRL on board, and sort of looking after them, etc. But they've sort of knocked it back at this stage. So, yeah, but it's interesting to see that that still goes on, and I can't believe that probably says a bit about the players themselves, but how they think they're going to get away with it.
Yeah, after and with all the sort of schooling that they get, and everybody telling you continuously, and like people getting caught before, but they still. Yeah. I mean, in your back in your day, like, would that be even talked about, like using sort of steroids or?
Mate, to be honest, I reckon there was quite a bit of that going on.
Yes.
because there wasn't much testing going on then.
Right.
So, mate, I reckon. I remember we played. Remember they used to do the pre-season knockout, the Tui's.
Yes.
Knockout. It was a pre-season comp, and we played a double header. We played North Sydney, and they played. We played down in Goulburn this day. This is probably about 1990 or 91.
Right.
I think it was 91. I think it was pre-season, beginning of 91. And Canberra were playing Balmain after us, so we played. Then we sort of waited on the field until they then ran on. And mate, the Canberra side came out, and dead set they were that much bigger than the year before. It was ridiculous. So and mate, to be honest, I reckon some players have been on something.
Yeah. And it's probably not just rugby league in general. It was probably a lot of sports in that time.
Yeah, without doubt. Yeah, you could get away with it because there was very limited testing, and those that did get tested. I think there was a bit more in the mid-90s, but that late 80s or mid-80s to late 90s, mate, there was bugger all.
Yeah, and to be fair, it was a lot more physical in those days as well. So sort of like the injuries, would have been occurring a lot more as well.
Oh, without doubt. And, mate, that was the days too when, from memory, Canterbury in that mid-80s, who were a tough side and had a real good pack, mate, they were wearing ice hockey shoulder pads.
Yeah.
At the time, which were made of, like, bloody a strong sort of plastic thing.
Oh, right. Wow. So how the times have changed to the modern game. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But let's talk a little bit about the Knights now, like the current team.
Yep.
They've had that huge break now. Like they started off on fire, winning their first two games very convincingly. So how do you see them progressing now, for this year, for this season?
Well, I think they'll be pretty good actually. I mean, I think most players have come back okay, in pretty good shape. I mean, obviously they were given training exercises and fitness stuff to do, but and I think most players are be like that. Given the start they've had, they'd be all keen to do the right thing, and I'm sure they'll bounce back pretty good. I mean, it's probably not huge that they'll only have sort of 3 weeks as a team running together and all that sort of thing. So, hopefully I think they should do okay.
Yeah, because they've already had that full pre-season, and then
that's right.
So they should be ready to go. And I think the good thing about the Knights this year is there's a lot of players sort of jostling for a spot in the actual first grade team, which in the couple of years before hasn't really sort of happened. You got Bradman Best,
yep.
They've just signed McCulloch. So it's good to see that sort of, rivalry to sort of get that first grade spot, don't you think?
Yeah, without doubt. I mean, if you've got a strong roster and that's, in your top 30, then they're going to put pressure on the players that are playing in first grade. And, hopefully that makes them play better, and it should.
Yeah, definitely. Kalen Ponga coming back and McCulloch.
Yep.
I see a good future, and hopefully I can watch a few more games this year.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they've got some pretty good juniors that are vying for first grade spots. I mean, which is going to be great, and hopefully holds the club in good stead for the future.
Yeah, definitely. Chris Randall on the bench and Tex Hoy starting at fullback this week. So it's definitely a bright future for the Knights. And speaking of bright futures, I do believe that your son is in the juniors. Is that right?
But he was, but
he was.
He's now, he's 23 now, so he'll be 23 at the end of the year. So he's playing with South Newcastle.
Right.
Yeah.
And what has happened with the local competition? I haven't been too up to date with the local competition. Are they coming back?
Yeah, well, they haven't started, and the word is that they probably won't play if they'll only play if crowds are allowed back in. So if there's going to be no crowds, I'd say the competition won't go ahead this year.
Expired. Wow. And can you remember a time where it's actually happened like this, that we've had such a long break? I mean, maybe like the Super League war or...
No, well, not even that, mate. Even during the Super League war, I mean, games still went ahead. It's just, mate, this is, you know, as everyone says, it's unprecedented times, but it certainly is because, you know, it hasn't ever happened like this where, you know, at least we started the comp, but we got it 2 weeks into it, and then it's been halted for at least 6 to 7 weeks, 8 weeks, really. So,
yeah, right.
And not only that, where it's going to go, you know, the grand final will be held sort of into late October, and then you're going to have the State of Origin series in November. So I hope we don't get a bloody heat wave comes through.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and like in terms of injuries as well, it's going to really test the squad depth as well. Like you know, playing, you know, having no breaks or no buys, just playing straight through it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but let's go back a little bit. So for our international listeners, they might be a little bit vague about this. So you were born in Wagga Wagga?
That's correct, yep.
Yeah, so tell us about growing up there. What was it like? Yeah, again, for our international listeners.
Yeah, no worries. Well, Wagga Wagga's in southern sort of New South Wales. It's a country town. When I grew up there, it was population around 30 to 40,000, so it wasn't a big town. But like all country towns, you know, sport was the main thing that happened on the weekend, and everyone played sport. I was no different. You know, I played, a heap of my mates played Aussie rules. I played Aussie rules at school.
Right.
Played, obviously, rugby league. I played basketball. You know, heap of different sports. But obviously rugby league, my father played rugby league. That's the reason I was into rugby league, and my younger brother played as well. So, yeah, I was fortunate enough growing up playing rugby league in Wagga. My last year at school, I got to play for the Australian schoolboys, so I was quite fortunate, yeah.
So, did your dad play in the New South Wales Rugby League, or did he just play like
that? He was born in Sydney, so he was a South Sydney junior.
Right.
Played with the juniors. I think he played a couple of lower grade games at South Sydney before. I think he was only about 20 or 19 or 20 when he left there and came down to Wagga. And Greg Haywick, who at the time was playing with, or had played with South Sydney, and so he took Dad down, a couple other players down, and to Wagga, and he ended up meeting my mother and ended up staying there. So I think he fell in love with not only my mother but the town as well.
So was Wagga like a rugby league? You know, they've got their own competition in Wagga as well. Is it a good sort of a competition down there?
Yeah, it was. So they play in the country, like under New South Wales country. So it's Group 9 down there.
Group 9, okay.
And so quite a number of good teams. So Wagga had, at the time, they had 3 teams in Wagga, 3 rugby league teams. Then you played teams like Junee, Temora, Harden, Young, those sort of teams. So, yeah, but it was, mate, always a very strong comp. My old man, he played down there for a number of years. He captain coached the Wagga Kangaroos, who I played for. He won a couple of comps there. He coached Riverina, coached Group 9, and played for Riverina in Group 20, I think they were before they went to Group 9. But yeah, so, mate, he was a pretty handy footballer in his day.
And do you remember sort of going to watch him play, like in Sydney?
No, mate, no. Well, when he was in Sydney, I wasn't born then, and he came down to Wagga and just stayed here in Wagga. And you know, we went along to games, but I can't really remember watching him play.
Yeah, right. And then did your brother? You're saying that your brother also played rugby league as well. Did he go on to? He
did, yeah. So Scotty played. He came up to St George with me, followed me up like a year or 2 years later. Played at St George, played lower grades at the Knights for a number of years. Didn't unfortunately play first grade there, but mate, he was a pretty handy footballer too, and played first grade quite a number of games down in Wagga.
And he played in the forwards as well, or was he?
No, he was a back. He was a 5'8", mate. So.
Right. When how old were you when you first sort of started playing rugby league? Was it a young age? Or?
Yeah, a young age. I was 5, mate, when I first started.
And then you sort of played schoolboys. Is that how it started?
Well, you played played sort of both. So down there you played obviously junior rugby league with whichever club you chose, and obviously we were with Wagga Kangaroos, so I played juniors with them. But you also played footy for the school as well, so there was a competition during the year which was called the Hardy Shield, which was played between the high schools down there. Then I also said I wanted to sort of try and make the Australian schoolboys side, so to do that, and then had to go to like a country, because I was in the Catholic system, so so you went to try out for the country sort of Catholics team, and then you got selected in that, and then you played against other Catholic areas, divisions or whatever they were, and then they picked the New South Wales Catholic Schools boys team, and then from that you played in the Australian Schoolboy Championships, and from that they then select an Australian Schoolboys team.
And you were selected?
Yeah, I was, which was quite fortunate. I actually, in the schoolboys, which is New South Wales, Queensland, they have a Melbourne sort of team or a combined team. There was an ACT team. I was fortunate enough, I got the player of the tournament for that.
Oh, wow.
Which I was pretty happy with.
That's great. And did you, were you always a forward? Were you always playing in the back row, or did you have
Yeah, mainly in the forwards, but I had a couple of stints playing 5'8", and in fact I got selected for the Wagga representative team. This is like first grade. In 2 trials, with Manly and Balmain came down and played a Wagga rep team. At the start, this was at the start of 1984, so the start of my last year at school, so I was only 17 then, and got picked at 5'8", so played against, and Balmain had a fair team, like they had Rhodes years and all and then, and Manly had a pretty fair team too, I think, as well.
So 5'8" was sort of like your preferred spot?
No, lock was, but I was happy to play wherever, so I had a bit of pace and a bit of a step and pass the ball okay, so I was picked at 5'8" there for a couple of games.
Because and correct me if I'm wrong, but you also had some other, it wasn't Peter Sterling from Wagga Wagga as well?
Yeah, been quite a few players, mate. Sterlo, it's funny, Sterlo was born in Toowoomba, so he's born in Queensland. Moved to Raymond Terrace, which is just up the road here in Newcastle, as a baby, and then I think he left there. His old man was in the police force, with the Police Citizens Youth Club, and so he got moved from there to Wagga when Stello was about 8 or 9. So, and then played with the Wagga Kangaroos, who I played with. So there's been quite a number of good players come out. So Sterlo came out of there. The Mortimer brothers played with Turfy Park. They're all Wagga players. Who else?
And then from a cricket sort of side, is it Mark Taylor?
Yeah, Mark Taylor. Well, he was born in West Wyalong, then came over and same thing when he was young. His old man was in the bank. Then played in Wagga. Michael Slater's from there. Jeff Lawson's from there.
Wow.
Number of good Aussie rules players that come out of there. Mate, Paul Kelly that played with the Swans. And Wayne Carey that played with Melbourne. Yeah, so mate, there's been some good sporting players come out of there.
What's in the water down there in Wagga?
Mate, just like a good country town, like most country towns, I think, everyone plays sport on the weekend. You get some good players that come out of it.
So, why did you decide on rugby league? Was it because of your father's influence?
Yeah, because the old man played, so he got us to play. And, he was coaching us as a young kid. As I said, I started when I was 5 and mate, really enjoyed it, so...
And were you sort of like a big 5-year-old, or was like a? No,
I don't think I was huge, mate. I think I was just pretty average, I suppose, as size wise.
Because we're talking about when I come back before, a lot of the people were talking about the kids playing in the juniors, how there's a lot of Polynesian kids that are 15, 16 stone at 7 or 8 years old, and it's sort of stopping the little kids.
From playing. That's right.
Yeah, so that's sort of like a big debate at the moment. What do you think about that? Because you wouldn't have had those rules.
No, that's right. I mean, I think there is a place probably for it, but if that kid wants to, the small kid that goes on and plays, if he wants to continue playing at a higher level or
That's right.
As he gets older, he's eventually got to tackle someone bigger than him.
That's right. And I guess if you taught the basics, learning how to tackle the correct way,
Yep.
Doesn't matter how big they are,
Yeah, that's right. I mean, my young bloke, when he was in primary school, we went to he was playing in a rep school knockout thing, and mate, there was a massive team from this is only year 6, so it's 12, 13 years old, and mate, there was a Western Sydney team that had a heap of Polynesians. There was a kid there that was probably about 6'2", and about 100 kilo at 12 or 13, who would struggle to run 50 metres, but you get him 2 metres out from the line, who's going to stop
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I totally understand. So I don't think they've changed any of the rules in the juniors, but there talks of having a weight division or something.
Yeah, they're talking. They have done that in certain areas down in Sydney, and they've changed a bit of footy, with regards to mini and mod, mini footy and mod footy. There's no one playing for. You don't play in the grand final or anything like that. There's no finals, so you just play for the season. And I think they're also, having the league tag as well for those that don't want to get tackled or whatever else.
That's interesting. And the other thing too on the side of that is also the touch footy as well. That's become very, very popular as well. So, they've got all different sort of options. So. I just hope that Rugby League sort of continues to grow, especially here in Newcastle, because, we've always sort of relied on our local competition and for the Knights as well. So
yeah, that's right.
Let's hope it continues to grow. So you made the Australian schoolboys team, and I do believe one of your coaches was actually a former Knights, a future Knights coach as well. Was it David Waite?
That's right. Yeah, David Waite was coach with the Australian schoolboys, who then became the reserve grade coach at the Knights the first year, and then went on to be first grade coach. I think from 90 or sort of halfway through 91 through till I think 93 or 4.
But you got your first break into the New South Wales Rugby League at that time?
Yeah, it was. So at the time, with the Australian schoolboys, I had a number of offers from clubs in the Sydney Rugby League competition, and I ended up signing with St George. And so I had 3 years at St George, where I was fortunate enough. The first year I was at St George, we made the grand final in all 3 grades. I played in the reserve grade grand final at the Sydney Cricket Ground, and then stood by to play in the first grade grand final, but unfortunately didn't get on. So back then, with first grade, they just had the 13 players, and then the reserves were made up from players from either reserve grade or under 23s.
Backing up. Yeah.
So there was no fresh reserves or anything like that.
Is that what they still do in the local competition as well?
No, they don't. No, so they have 4 fresh players.
They have 4 for reserves as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I just remember some of my friends playing, they'll play reserve grade, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, can you hang around and
Well, they still do that. They still get players just in case, but so that's the case.
Right. And it says that you played 8 games with the St George first grade team. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And 86 and 87. So, the actual first game was 86. So tell us what that experience was like, running onto the field playing first grade.
Yeah, well, it was interesting. It was actually the second comp game of the year. So I played pretty well in the off-season, in the trial games, and then I think we played South Sydney was the first game of the year, and then I played well in. I think I was playing in reserve grade that day, and played pretty well. Scored a couple of tries, and then our first grade team got beat by South Sydney, and so the next week we were playing Parramatta at Parramatta, and it was the first ever game at the brand new Parramatta Stadium when they built it. So they knocked Cumberland Oval down and built the brand new Parramatta Stadium. So I got picked to play in that. I played second row that game, which I was a bit dirty at because I'm not sure why I played there, although Roy said later, Roy Masters, who was our coach, said, I picked you there to sort of look after you and whatever anyway. So, but I ended up getting the Shepherd's hook at half time, and I think we got beat 36-6 that day. So we scored the first try. Mick O'Connor, I think, scored it off an intercept.
Yeah.
But yeah, mate, they were red hot, and they ended up winning the comp that year, Parramatta, which was the last time they won the comp.
Yeah, the old Parramatta in that mid '80s were very, very.
Yeah, they had a pretty fair side, mate. So.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. So '87, and then. How did it all go about, with talks with the Knights? How did that all come about? Was it after the 87 season had finished?
No, it was actually during the year. So I ended up with a few injuries. Like the first year I played in 85, played every game, played mostly in 23s, finished year in reserve grade. The second year I had a couple of injuries, and same with the third year. So being a boy from the bush, I wasn't that keen on Sydney. So
yes.
David Waite actually got in touch with me and said, listen, I'm going to coach up in Newcastle next year. And then Newcastle, Brisbane and the Gold Coast were coming in to the competition at the beginning of 88. So Waite had rung me and said, can we meet with you? So I ended up meeting with him and Macca and sort of spoke about Newcastle. I said, well, I haven't really been to Newcastle. So he said, we'll bring you up for a look. And in the meantime, I'd spoken with the Gold Coast. And I was pretty close to signing with them. So, given the money they offered and that sort of thing. So I ended up going up to Newcastle having a look around. I thought, yeah, it looks pretty good. And I ended up deciding on Newcastle on the basis that they were going to sign young blokes. Not sign older blokes. So their idea was sign blokes with the 3 Ts. And so that was... you had to be tough, you had to be able to tackle, and you had to have plenty of tomorrows, meaning they were young blokes. So, whereas the Gold Coast were signing blokes at their end of their career.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'll stick with Newcastle. So
was the money more in the Gold Coast than Newcastle?
Yeah, well, I only wanted to sign a year at a time, which I used to do with my contracts early on. So, because I backed myself to play well and then get signed for more the next year. So at the time, the Gold Coast offered me then was $100,000 for 3 years. So that's 33,000 a year basically. And I said, oh yeah, okay. So I was keen on that, obviously. But and then the Knights ended up saying, I said, look, I only want to sign a 1 year contract at a time. So I signed for 35 with the Knights, and actually then the next year I signed for 40. Thus then there was match payments and all that sort of thing. But that second year in 89, I only played 2 first grade games because I got injured a fair bit. And then at the end of the year, my old man rang me and said, Michael Little had been in touch with him and they're not that keen to sign you. So I ended up saying, well, shit, I've got no other options. So I ended up signing with the Knights, but I signed for $10,000 plus a heap of incentives and whatever else, which I ended up getting in the end because I played every game that year.
Right. So that first year where you signed for 35, I mean, that in like 88, that's not a bad sort of contract.
But it was good money then. Yeah. Really good.
But and then you like. Considering it now, like where Callum Ponga's been offered like $1.1 million
just a little bit more.
So, I'm always interested to know about you see the players now and they're like such professional athletes and they're all ripped and all that. So, what was the sort of like training regime, the training schedule in those days?
It was pretty similar to probably most footy clubs really. Then we trained Tuesday, Thursday and Friday or Saturday morning, depending where you played. So, but Tuesday night you'd get smashed fitness-wise. Yeah. So, mate, to be honest, we were fit as. Whereas these days now it's all about not overloading you and all that sort of stuff, and they check on how you're going as far as Ks are concerned, and how much you've run, how much, especially on the weekend if you've played, etc. Whereas, mate, pre-seasons were horrendous. You just got absolutely hammered.
Yes.
And then during the season, as I said, Tuesday night was always fitness, and then a bit of ball work and skill stuff, and then Thursday night was sort of ball work, and then Friday a light run through, or Saturday morning was a light run through. So that was about it, yeah.
And it always sort of, I always forget, like, watching the old school games, like, from the 80s and 90s. There's been a lot on Fox at the moment.
Yeah.
You watch the game and the guy scores the try. Like, I saw Freddie Fittler score a try, and then it said, he's an apprentice, or the other guys like worked for the post office, or it actually come up with their full-time occupation. So did you have did they give you like work as well?
I worked as well, mate. So I was a real estate agent.
Yeah, I thought you were. Yeah. So Dowling, really?
With Dowling,
yeah, on the ads, I remember. Yeah.
So I did that for about 10 years, mate. So worked and played. It was funny, by the end of my time with the Knights, which was 97, obviously my last year, but with Super League coming in 95, 96, most of the players, I think all but 2 or 3 of us were still working. So everyone else was then full-time.
Full-time, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see that. So you start with the Knights, the first couple of years. I remember my dad taking me to all the games, sitting on the hill, whether it was pouring rain or and especially going to watch my memories of it having the Brisbane come down with Wally Lewis and King Wally. Wally's a wanker.
Wally. That first year, I think, when they came and played, I think they printed a heap of T-shirts and Wally's a wanker.
Yeah, that's right.
T-shirts, yeah.
Yeah, but I just remember, and I'm sure you can talk about this in more detail. But I just remember going to the games and just being drawn in, even as a kid. It didn't matter to me whether you weren't winning too many games, to be fair at that time.
No.
But I still wanted to go every single week because you guys just put in 100%. And like these teams will be coming from Sydney and from Canberra. There's Parramatta and Manly and St George and Canberra. They're all such talented teams, and we would try so hard. We'd put in 100%. We'd smash them. Absolutely smash them. If you come to a Knights game, you knew you were going to be in a fight.
Exactly. I mean, that was the case, I think, with most of the teams. I mean, when they came up to Newcastle, they thought, shit, we're probably going to win the game, but we're in for a hard day.
Yeah. I remember Steve Roach and Wayne Pearce. They've been on there saying every time they see playing Newcastle at Newcastle, it's like, man, we're in for
That's it.
So, do you have any sort of any vague sort of memories of those times?
Oh yeah, mate, really do. I mean, it was funny that even that first ever game that we sort of played, which was the Herald, it was called the Newcastle Herald Shield, which was that tradition of in Newcastle years gone by, the premier team, like whoever won the Premiership in the Newcastle comp, would play a combined Newcastle rep team would play the premiers from the NRL or the New South Wales Rugby League comp that they had. So they still did that in 88 then. So at the start of 88, Manly came up in that game, and they thought they'd obviously won the comp in 87. Mate, had a really good team. And so, mate, we actually give it to them. So,
that's right.
And beat them. And it wasn't until that game that I thought, shit, I made the right decision to come to Newcastle.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of which, the coach at that time was Alan McMahon.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about his sort of coaching style and what he meant to the team.
Yeah, mate, Macca was a great fella. Mate, he was hard, but a fair bloke. So, he was obviously a fair player in his day too, so played for Australia. And he was only a young coach when he was coaching us. I think he was 31 when he coached us that first year in 88. But he was, expected I guess, a lot from his players to give their all, which I think we did. Know we had that saying of be the player everyone wants to play with within the team. And, I guess Macca, he was a fairly astute coach too in this fact that when he had us in that first year, he knew he had a young side. There wasn't a lot of experience in the side. So he said, well, I can't let them do too much, otherwise scores will blow out, people won't be happy, etc. So he made sure defensively we were the best we could be, so that there wasn't too many blowout scores that we played. Not to mention, I think we won 3 or 4 games that first year. And I remember, I think we had to beat North Sydney to avoid the wooden spoon in our last home game, and we give it to them that day.
Yes.
So we didn't end up getting the wooden spoon, which was pretty fair effort in the first year, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. And, the one thing that I also remember is it didn't matter whether you were coming down the bottom or not, there was still 25,000, 30,000. I remember sometimes that they would announce like a low crowd and everybody would just go, boo!
It was always less, mate. It was always less than what they thought. And I think that was, of course, then, like with the money that they were getting through the gate, they were, I don't know whether they had to pay tax or something on it, but there was something along those lines.
Or something to the New South Wales Rugby League or something like that.
Exactly.
But I remember times where I had to sit in the trees to watch the game. If you turned up late, there was and I don't think the newer sort of Knights fan sort of realises that every single week that ground was packed. It
was, and for the big games, it was interesting. Because the under 23s had played then reserve grade. Mate, under 23s would kick off at probably 10 o'clock in the morning or something. Mate, if there was about 5,000 there then in the crowd, you knew it was going to be a big crowd.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And it's just funny. My pop would be like a bit of a. They'd open the gates at half time, so he'd come in and.
That's it. You didn't have to pay after
half time. Didn't have to pay half time. Old pop. So, with the injuries as well, like you were saying in '89, you had some injuries. So, what was that injury in particular? And can you tell us about some of the major ones? I saw a picture there where you had stitches in your head. And
there was a few of those. So,
what was that one?
Well, the one in the head, it was funny, it was 2 years in a row, about the same time. I think it was about 85 and then 95 and 96. I busted my cheekbone on one side and then got it operated on, got a couple of plates in it, and then I did it badly on the right one and end up with 4 plates in it. But they had to cut me from one side of my ear, so almost halfway to my head, and then peel the face down and put the plates in that way. So, but yeah, I when I was at St George in '87, I had that knee reconstruction, so I ended up tearing my ACL, my medial, and my lateral ligament in the knee. So I had a knee reconstruction in that. Then in '89, I broke a bone in my foot. I think broke a bone in my hand. I think I tore my
you can go through the body, I think.
Yeah, tore my medial ligament. So I ended up, I think I played, as I said, 2 first grade games in '89, but I think I played about 10 or so in reserve grade that year. So it wasn't the best year that year.
So it says here 188 games for the Newcastle Knights.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And we had some characters in that time. I remember Sammy Stewart. The captain.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Sammy.
Mate, he was a great fella, Sam. Real good fella, mate. Trained like you wouldn't believe. He was just a fitness fanatic. And he was obviously captain that first year and I think second year. But mate really led the club really well, and we had quite a number of Kiwi players that we signed as well that year. So, mate, he was a real good fella, Sam, and still is. And
is he still in Newcastle?
No, he's not, mate. He lives up the Gold Coast now.
Oh, right, okay.
But yeah, mate, a great fella, Sam, and he still looks as fit as ever too. Mate, he hasn't changed much at all.
Wouldn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah.
And then we go along through the years into the early '90s. Crowds are still huge. But the one thing that I sort of noticed through the years there in the 90s, that you just kept getting that one or two extra international player or rep player. You know, Mark Sargent came in.
Yep.
Hagan came in.
Yep.
And you just kept developing your juniors as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And then all of a sudden, in the like the early, it was the Johns brothers.
Yeah.
But then
we always had some great juniors. I mean, that's the beauty of back then when we had under 23s in reserve grade. And unfortunately now you don't see that. You really only go into the game and there's one game on, which is unfortunate, I think. Because I guess the crowd would go to the game and see all these good junior players coming up through the system.
Definitely. And I think that was partly the reason, why they kept coming back, because they were all local. The majority of the team were local juniors. So, and I think that's, I don't know, maybe it's my opinion, but like in the later, when we were losing a lot of games, I think that's partly the reason why the crowds weren't going there. Like, they brought in Wayne Bennett and, Darius Boyd and, that sort of period where it was like, you know what, these guys aren't sort of putting in 100%. So anyway, getting back to those times we have like the Johns brothers, the immortal Andrew Johns. So this is the sort of period, that really started picking up. You got, I do believe it was Robbie O'Davis around that time as well.
Yeah.
So when did you sort of start feeling that, this team is, starting to come along?
Well, I mean, it was funny. Sort of, we had a pretty fair team. Like in '92, we made the semi-finals for the first ever time. And, and I reckon we probably should have made the grand final that year. I think we were robbed when we played St George and got beat 3-2 in the semi. But I reckon we could have challenged Brisbane that year to maybe get a chance to win the comp. But we knew we had some good young juniors coming through. So, from '92 onwards, we thought we were going to be some pretty good years. And obviously the fact that they went out and got Mal Reily as a coach too when Mal came.
Absolutely. So when did he come in? Was that 94 or 95?
No, it was in 95.
95, right.
Beginning of 95. And Mal had a reputation as a hard coach and a mad fitness fanatic. And
so how is he different to Alan McMahon? Oh, David Waite was in there.
Waite was in there. So, Waite was more, being a school teacher, he was more, I suppose, talking about the finer points of the game and, that sort of thing around the skills of the game, whereas Macca was more around, bash 'em and that sort of thing, the way they played them. And I guess Mal really, to a degree, as a coach, mate, he was smart enough to recognise that he had Matthew and Andrew Johns pretty much running the team, so he didn't have to change too much. He let them have a bit of the, bit of control of the team, etc., and to how we were going to play. Yeah,
right. And that was that stage as well where Chief was he the captain around this time?
Well, Mark Sargent was, and then
Mark Sargent, yes.
And then Sarge. He sort of demoted Sarge and put Chief in charge as captain, I think. And Sarge got, I think, pissed off with Mal.
Yeah, right.
And, mate, they still don't talk much at all today if they see each other. So, mate, it's interesting.
Yeah, Mark Sargent was a great player as well. Like,
he was,
played
mate.
For Australia as well. One of our first international players.
He was the first one, mate.
Yeah. So we go along there, and then so I think in '96 and '95 you got to the finals as well, but you just didn't get to that.
We did. We made the semis in '95, I think it was, and mate, unfortunately we got beat. I'm just trying to think. I can't remember who beat us, but we got knocked out of the semi.
I remember actually going to the game where you beat Cronulla with a field goal.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it was funny because I'd broken my cheekbone the week before, in the game before that. Then we played Cronulla in the first semi, so I was out of it. But I'd had me cheekbone operated on with a couple of plates in. I I was keen to play, especially after they beat Cronulla in the semi. So I ended up playing in that game. We got beat by. I'm just trying to remember who it was. I think it was. I don't know whether it was Manly or not. I can't recall. But anyway, we got beat. But I played in that game. Unfortunately, we got beat. But yeah.
So then the 97. Okay, well, got to the 97. So what a great season, what a great year. So, but before that was the Super League sort of war there. So
yeah, that's right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because the Mariners came in there at that stage. We didn't know what was going on as a fan. Do I stay loyal to the Knights, or do I go and support this other team? Do I support both the teams? And for you as a player as well, it was all up in the air. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Mate, it was really interesting times actually. So it broke in 95, I think, sort of Super League, sort of 96, 95. Anyway, the day it all happened, sort of we were due to play Parramatta down at Parramatta. I'm sure this is 95. So, but the coaches and everything made sure there was no phone calls and stuff through to our rooms. So anyway, we finished and got home on the bus, and then we were hearing stories about other teams being signed, etc. So our club called a meeting with us all on the Tuesday after that game. Anyway, and said, this is it. Super League's here. News Limited, they're keen to talk to us. We're keen to go with them, and our club wanted to go with Super League.
Yeah,
obviously for the money, because they were struggling financially. So at the time, then they said, "Oh, look," and I reckon they probably might have got us over the line if they had sent some heavies, but they, people that we knew. But instead, they sent a couple of people that no one knew. Anyway, so Robert Finch, who was the third grade coach, Finchy was sort of helping make offers as well as whoever was there from Super League. And it was funny what they did when I went in to see them. They sort of saw everyone, made them an offer, etc. They asked me, "Well, how much do you want?"
Wow.
And I said, "Well, no, you tell me how much you're willing to pay." And they said, "No, you tell us how much you want." I said, "Well, I was reading at the time then, players like Bradley Clyde and Laurie Daly and Ricky Stewart getting 600 grand from Super League." So I said, "Oh, okay." So I said, "Well, I want 600 grand." They went, geez, well, you can't have that. So you asked me what I wanted.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they ended up offering me bugger all, really. And so for whatever reason, they didn't want to sign a few of us older blokes at the Knights. So right. Butts, myself, Robbie McCormack, whatever. So I said, "Well, stuff you then. I won't be signing." So
yes.
And so I ended up speaking to the ARL, and we hadn't really spoken. Nothing happened. So here our club was presenting News Limited. In the meantime, Chief had spoken to News Limited, and they'd made him an offer, and he'd also spoken to the ARL and made an offer, and then he made a decision to sign. So he came back up and we said, "Chief, mate, what's going on? Our club want to go to Super League, and we don't know what's going on. We haven't heard from the ARL." So he rang John Quayle or Ken Arthurson, whoever it was, and said, "Listen, we haven't heard from you guys. What's happening?" I said, "Oh, well, come down." Anyway, Chief was going down to sign his contract, and we went down with him. That's when we all sort of got on the bus, went down there, and then Ken Arthurson came and saw us and said, "Oh, what's happening?" I said, "Well, our club want to go to Super League. We don't want to go, or we haven't heard from you guys." He said, "Well, go back up. We'll send someone up." We went up, and Phil Gould came up then, spoke to us and said, "Okay, who's had an offer from Super League?" And everyone put their hand up. So I went in and saw him. When I saw him, he said, "Well, how much did they offer you?" And I think at the time they offered me 120, but they wouldn't guarantee me I'd be in Newcastle. And so I was on 100 that year, and so it was bugger all extra. So I said to Phil, "Oh, they've offered me 200 or 220, I think it was." He said, "I will give you 250. So I said, "Beauty, thanks." So I signed with them. But yeah, it was sort of interesting times, mate. The money that was getting thrown around was just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's crazy times. So then the Knights signed with the ARL.
Yeah, we did. So the majority of players, we all signed with them with the ARL. Right. Luckily, Matthew and Andrew, and there was quite a number of players that ended up signing with Super League, and And so obviously they were dirty that we didn't go to Super League. So they said, we'll stuff you. Well, the Super League said, we'll start our own team in Newcastle, which was obviously in 97. They kicked off and we had the split comp then. But, you know, and I guess if people say, oh, we only won it because it was half a comp. And I say to that, well, Manly were the gun team that made the grand final in 95 and 96 and won it in 95, I think, and obviously in 97. So, you know, we still played the best team to win the comp.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't just, Manly as well. You had North Sydney that were strong there, Parramatta, St George. So, you know, they had some fair teams in that competition still. And what did you think of the Mariners? I mean, they only had 1 year there, but a lot of them were the Storm players in the end. They sort of went from the Mariners to the Storm. So.
I mean, there were some good players there, and unfortunately we lost quite a number of the good players to them anyway. You know, players like Brett Morley, I think Paul Marquette went there, Brad Godden went there, Mark Sargent for a year. Yeah, those sort of players. And Mick Hagan went over, and I think he was an assistant coach there. And Graham Murray, who coached the Mariners, and Muzz was a great fellow. He coached me when I was over in Leeds.
Oh, great! Yes.
So
we'll get to that as well. So we get to the '97 grand final. We're with the ARL. So from my memory is that at the start of the season, Andrew Johns didn't play the start of that season, so it was off to not a good start. Your playmakers out.
Yeah, well, he played a couple of games, then got injured.
Gotcha. But the guy that stood up it took his place, Leo Denver.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people probably don't know who Leo Denver is, but I think if we didn't have him play as good as he did, I don't think we would have won. We
wouldn't have got the grand final, mate. There's no doubt about that. I mean, he was outstanding for us. I mean, Leo, we'd sort of never heard of Leo. He came, I think they gave him an opportunity. I think he was from up the North Coast way, and mate, he just had a season that you wouldn't believe. And to his credit, obviously he was probably disappointed he didn't play in the semis or in the grand final, and obviously Andrew took his spot, but. Mate, without him, we don't get to that grand final or make the semis even.
Yeah, definitely. He had a fantastic season. And going through that season, and I'm sure for everybody, even our international listeners, there was a tackle that you made, Mark, on Craig Field, I do believe. If you haven't seen it, especially for Australian people, you've probably seen it, but for my international listeners, if you haven't seen this, go on YouTube and search Marc Glanville hit on Craig Field. It is a bone rattler. Was it just like perfect timing, the right place at the right time?
Pretty much, mate. I remember... because Nick Kosef was at first receiver, and I was sort of obviously a bit wide, and then I just rushed up knowing Craig was going to get the ball and just happened to make good timing, really. and it wasn't a great pass from Nick either, because
it was a hospital pass.
Because he threw it and he had to get in the air a bit for it, and as he got in the air, that's when I couldn't really remember too much of it because when I tackled him, I drove him and my head hit the ground when I drove him into the ground. So I got a few stars and whatever else and got up, and it was a bit wobbly. But, so I didn't really think too much about it. I couldn't remember too much of it until I saw the news that night. So.
Oh, what a hit. That's one of the best hits, and that'll be on the highlight reels for a long, long time. Don't worry about that. So we go through the 97 season, and... we get to the semi-finals. We had a good season. I think we were in the top four, definitely.
Yep.
I'm not actually sure where we finished up. We get to the game against North Sydney in the semi-finals.
Yep.
This could have went either way, Mark. Tell us about this game leading up to the grand final.
It was. I mean, we were sort of dominant for the first half, and even in the second half we were doing things pretty easy, and then all of a sudden North Sydney scored a couple of tries, and then I think we were only in front by about 2 points, and then there was probably about 15 minutes to go, and they've made a break down the sideline, And Darren Albert makes the best tackle you've ever seen. So
I think that's also on the highlight reel as well, right?
It is, mate. And Albie, mate, is because he was unbelievably quick, and mate, for him to get from one side of the field to the other and tackle him into the corner and into touch, I mean, thank God, because otherwise I reckon North Sydney end up having that momentum, and they probably would have won the game, I'd say.
Definitely. It was Matt Sears too, wasn't it? I mean, he's
that's right. Either. Well, we were lucky. So as Matt gets the ball and takes off, he sort of half slips and goes down to his knee and then gets up again and goes.
Right.
If he doesn't do that, he probably scores. But
yes.
But yeah, it was an incredible tackle from Albie, and the pace of that Albie showed to get across there to tackle him is just amazing.
And that game was almost worthy of a grand final as well. That was, going back and forth, and, you were in the lead, and North had scored, so... But, the Knights did win. Great win. We get to the grand final. It's the first for Newcastle. I can just remember just being so excited. Like the whole environment and the atmosphere in Newcastle was just amazing. So tell us a little bit about, the whole, coming up to the grand final that week before.
Well, it was a pretty hectic week, I suppose. And Mal actually wanted to take us away from Newcastle.
Really?
Yeah, like to get away from it all, because he thought we'd
from the media,
distracted and stuff. So, but we said no, we want to soak up the atmosphere in Newcastle and stay here. So we tried to keep things as normal as possible. I still went to work, etc. But yeah, it was amazing. Like at every training session we had, there was probably a couple of thousand people there watching, and the media were there everywhere. And then Thursday we had to go down. We actually, I think, went down Wednesday. We had training session Wednesday. Went down Wednesday afternoon to Sydney because they had the grand final breakfast on Thursday morning.
Yes.
So they put us up in a hotel for it, and then we had the breakfast in the morning. So we had to be up early, I think, up about 5 and do the breakfast. Then we got on the bus and went back to Newcastle. Had a run on the Friday, and then Saturday we got the bus. It was amazing Saturday when we sort of all got to the ground to get on the bus to go down to Sydney. There was probably about 5,000 people, I reckon, at the ground, like in the car park there for us. Yes. And then when we left on the bus on the way out along Newcastle Road, heading out to Walls End and the Link Road, mate, there was people everywhere just on the side of the road waving flags and cheering us on, holding signs up and everything. It was just amazing. And mate, there was probably a bit of a tear from us older blokes that had been there from day one, so players like Chief and myself, etc. But because we could see how much it meant to the people.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
we're going through some pretty tough times financially, and BHP closing down as well. Right. So financially, it was a bit of a down for Newcastle, but. My dad still lives on Newcastle Road, right. So I can still remember, waving the flag there and waiting for the bus to go past.
It was unbelievable how many people there were there.
And people were still, even down the Link Road there, getting onto the highway, there were still people down there as well. So, it was such and we just had to win it,
Yeah, well, that's what we said when we saw all that. We just said we can't come back without it.
Yeah, you guys just you got to do it. And during that year, I don't think you beat Manly in the whole season.
Well, we lost actually 10 games against Manly, and wow. that year we played. I think we played Manly 4 times and hadn't beaten them. So we played them in a trial game up at Coffs Harbour at the start of the season. We played them in 2 comp games that year, got beaten those. Played them in the semi-final and got beaten that. And then we were playing them in the grand final. So we played, there was 4 games that year we got beat by them, and the 10 all up that we hadn't beaten them for. So and then they got away to a pretty good start too. Yeah,
because Sydney was everybody was picking obviously Manly except for the people living in Newcastle. But everybody, I remember the quote saying, my brain says Manly, but my heart says Newcastle.
And that was the case, mate. The amount of people at the game, there was probably 90 or 95% of them going for us.
Yes.
Even if they supported other teams, you know. So.
It was a love-hate for Manly. So what was the actual game plan that Mal sort of gave to you to sort of beat Manly? Because I'm always interested to hear about this, because like watching the game again, you guys came out and you just absolutely just took it to them, and you're smashing them. Carroll,
Yep.
You know, was that the main game plan, to get in their face and actually, you know, rip in?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Mal was around, you know, their forward pack. You got to stop their forward pack, and I think he said to Chief, mate, you don't get set off in grand finals, and mate, Chief went out there and mate was destroying them. So, mate, it was good from that point of view, and obviously, you know, the game plan, trying to, you know, like all games really, it's about having as much football as you can and denying the opposition the footy and tackling well. So defensively, I think wasn't too bad, although there was a couple of tries that we let in which weren't great. But the good thing was, mate, in the second half they didn't score a point in that second half. So defensively it was really good.
And for you on a personal side, were you nervous playing that grand final, running out there?
A little bit leading up to it, but yeah, mate, I was looking forward to it. I mean, it was my last ever game from the club, but yeah, so it was, and it was quite a warm day too. So yeah, mate, I was just sort of soaking up the atmosphere and trying to enjoy myself.
Yeah, and we get to the end of the game, you know, 15 seconds to go. So where were you on the field? Were you?
Well, I actually got. So we'd scored a try, which Robbie had scored, which
great try,
goal, which made it 16-all. So they kicked off to me, and I caught the ball and took it up. And when I got tackled, I dislocated my finger. So I put my hand up, came off, got it put back in. I said, I'll go back on in extra time. So I was on the sideline, unfortunately, when you know, Joey went down the side and threw it back into Albie to score. So, and I was a bit dirty. I was on the sideline then too, because Joey was looking for me to take the kick goal.
Oh, right.
It was my last ever game, and that was it. It was full time then. So, and it wouldn't have mattered if I missed or not.
Yeah.
So I was dirty that I was on the sideline, because I had been on the ground, I would have kicked the goal, and kicked the goal and scored 2 points in the grand final.
Well, speaking of which, and sorry to go off topic, but it says in your stats that you had one field goal in this season as well.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I remember. I think I was at the game.
We were playing Parramatta. I say it was to win the game, but we were actually winning 24-10, I think it was. And we were attacking their line. There was the ball was getting tossed around, and it came to me, and the siren sort of gone, and so I just potted it over, mate.
Yeah, that was awesome. And so the Knights win the '97 grand final. What an achievement! You know, were your family there all to watch?
Yeah. Well, actually, my old man wasn't. He was over living in the States at the time, so he unfortunately wasn't there. But I think my sister had came up for it, and some friends of ours, and my wife, and I had 2 kids at the time, so they were only young. But yeah, so mate, it was just incredible afterwards. I mean, the game kicked off at 3 or a bit after 3 and finished at sort of 5 o'clock, and I reckon we didn't get into the sheds till probably 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, mate, doing that lap of honour and the amount of people that were still there.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, coming back, you know, everybody's waiting for you back in Newcastle.
Yeah, well, it was incredible, that trip back. So we were on the bus on the way home, all excited. I think I stood up the whole way, and we were drinking beers, etc. Yeah. But we get to the turn-off to get on the M1 or M3, it was known as then. And there was a heap of people there waiting for us and all bipping us as we went past. So on the freeway, people are going past us. Obviously, Novocastrians heading back home, and they're all bipping and waving flags, etc. The Ourimbah roundabout, because I hadn't completed the freeway then, so it was still there. Mate, there would have been probably 50 people on the Ourimbah roundabout waving flags, etc. And then when we get to the link road here at Newcastle, Walls End there, and every roundabout was chockers with people just waving flags all the way. We get down to Walls End where the Shell servos are,
Yeah.
And at the lights there, and by this time we got a police escort. So we're pulled up at the lights, and then Joey and Matt Johns get off the bus, and they jump up on top of the cop car, and they got a Knights flag each, and they're waving around. Mate, the crowd's going mad. So it took us an hour from Wallsend to get from there into the Workers' Club.
Workers' Club, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And then again, you're jumping on the guys were jumping on the bus and crowd surfing into the.
Well, that was the thing, mate. When we got there, the amount of people that were out the front, they're banging on the bus, and I think a couple of them cracked a window or whatever. But to get out of there and then upstairs into the auditorium, mate, there was people just jam-packed everywhere in there. It was just amazing. There was probably 10,000 people out the front of the Workers' Club.
Yeah,
it was just amazing.
The next couple of days, I think it was next week. It was the big ceremony, and
we had so Tuesday we had a ticker tape parade.
That's the one.
We had our Mad Monday on the Monday, which we were going to go to Manly to do, but luckily we didn't.
That would have been awesome.
But we ended up. We did our Mad Monday. Then on the Tuesday was a ticker tape parade. So we started it because we were sponsored by Stockland then. So we started at Stockland, Jesmond. Yeah, Jesmond. And so we were all in sort of open top cars and stuff. And so went from there up Newcastle Road, all the way into town, and then up Hunter Street. And then we stopped at the Civic, or at the Council Chambers or Town Hall. And mate, there would have been like 15,000 people, I reckon, in Civic Park. You could not see one blade of grass. There was people just jammed in everywhere.
Yeah.
We got presented to the crowd.
The Jets.
The Jets, that's it.
Yeah, Screaming Jets came out and
did a concert, so we were all on stage with them.
Yeah.
And they're good fellas, so luckily we knew them all right. So, mate, it was on, and then Joey and Matt were diving into the crowd and stuff.
Yeah, that's it.
Mate, it was unreal.
How long did that go for? How long did the partying go for?
Well, we went to a pub, and I think I got a cab home again at about 5 or 6 in the morning then. And then I had a day off. I had done enough. Yeah. So the Wednesday we had off, and then Thursday we were back on it because the Thursday we were going to go to Manly. And they said, no, we didn't. So we ended up getting a bus up to...
Who kept saying to go down to Manly?
The boys were, just to go in. Luckily we didn't. But we ended up getting a bus, got it up to Cessnock and did a bit of a pub crawl up there to the valley. All the people up there. So, mate, it was a good day too. And then the Friday night, I think we had the 10-year reunion, like the old boys. So
yes.
And then Saturday was on. It was just full on, really.
It's full on again, more drinking.
Yeah.
And at this stage, had you already signed with the Leeds Rhinos?
Yeah, I had. So I knew that was going to be my last year with the club.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was looking forward to going over there. So
was that your decision? Or
my decision, mate. I'd sort of had enough by then. I knew probably there's younger people coming through, and I was looking for another challenge. So 10 years, that was long enough.
Yeah, amazing career with the Knights, and then going to Leeds Rhinos. Normally, that's sort of like a money day for people that go over there. So, was it financially viable over there?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, financially it was good. So worth going to, and I only wanted to go for 2 years, but I always wanted to play over in England, and I wasn't sure which club to, and I'd spoken to Mal during the year, and Mal sort of arranged for me to see someone or speak to someone, and Gary Hetherington, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Leeds Rhinos, he came out that year looking for players, and Mal had been in touch with him, so I had met with Gary during the year and was keen to sign, and so ended up signing a contract with him.
Yeah, right. And tell us a little bit about that experience there. You were there for 2 years.
It was a great experience. I really enjoyed myself there. I mean, when I signed, Leeds hadn't appointed a coach at the time, and they'd been struggling, actually. The Rhinos hadn't really won anything major for about 20 years. They almost got relegated a year or two before I got there.
And how was it for you, Mark? Like injury wise, were you okay? Over
there? Yeah, great. Didn't have any injuries. I didn't have one. I think I broke a rib. That was about it. Or did a rib cartilage.
So what was the sort of like the standard of football? Rugby league. Like,
mate, it was good.
Yeah.
And if you go over there expecting it's not going to be, or it's going to be easy, mate, you're in for a rude shock because,
exactly.
Mate, there's some good players over there, and I was real fortunate that at the time, sort of Leeds had signed a couple of players, a lot of English players. We had Adrian Morley, who was only a young fella.
Yeah, right.
I think Moz was 19 then. Mate, he was outstanding that year. We had Yeston Harris, who was a bloke who could play. He was a 5'8" from. We ended up having this really, really good team. Brad Godden played there as well at the same time as I did. And, mate, the first year I was there, we ended up making the grand final, which was their inaugural grand final. So that was...
Is that at Wimbledon?
The Super League. No, the Super League one was at Old Trafford, which was Manchester United's home ground. So this was the first time they'd ever done a top 5 in a grand final. So we played Wigan in that and unfortunately got beat. I think we got beat 10-4, something along those lines. Right. But a great experience, mate. 50,000 people there at Old Trafford. So I did end up playing at Wembley. It was the last ever Challenge Cup game played at the old Wembley Stadium, which we won the Challenge Cup the following year. But it was interesting. Being over in England for those 2 years, I played in the first ever Super League Grand Final and played in the last ever Challenge Cup to be played at the old Wembley Stadium. So, so it was pretty
right. And how did you adjust to living in Leeds?
Mate, obviously a bit colder.
Yeah.
But mate, I loved it. The people are great. The first year in Leeds, summer-wise, wasn't great because it was played over. Obviously, they play Super League there in summer. But the start of the year is cold and the end of the year is cold, obviously. But that year, that first year I was there, mate, I think we had 1 week of hot weather in May, end of May, and that was it. The rest was rainy and miserable. But the second year, mate, we had about 3 months of warm weather. And for whatever reason, it just seems hotter over there. Like when it's 30 degrees, it feels like it's 40.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And then you come back after the end of the 99 season. And when did you start, it was KOFM at the time, but when did you start working with them as like a sideline eye?
Well, actually, when I came back, I think 2001, was it 2000, I got a call to say, I think it was 2000 or 2001, would you be interested in doing this? No, this was with 2HD then.
Oh, yeah. So was that with Gary Harley there?
With Gary Harley, yeah.
Right.
And so I said, I'll do, because I think the semi-final that the Knights were in 2000, it was, I did a bit of a call with them against the Roosters in that game.
Oh, yes. I remember that game, yes.
And so that was it, just a one-off with that. And then they rang me again, what was that? I think it was in 2002 or 3 when they ended up, I think KO rang, and got the rights then. I forget what year it was, but I started to do the call then. So, yeah, but it was, mate, I've been doing it ever since, so it's been really enjoyable.
Yeah, exactly. And have you had any experiences or stories doing that?
Only when I was doing it with Gary Harley, mate. So yeah. So Gaz, I know when we were at KO because Gaz came over to KO and doing the call. So I remember we were up in playing the Gold Coast this day, and so we get up there early and go into the grandstand where their sort of club rooms are and whatever, and Gaz always loves the food, so we used to provide a bit of a feed, not much, in the call room that we're in or the media room. Anyway, so Gaz hadn't had enough, but the room next to where our studio or the room was that we were doing the call, the media box, so he's gone into the big restaurant with all their members and all that sort of stuff in there. Well, Gaz has just decided to sit down, got a meal served to him, so he's eating all this meal, all this food, etc., helping himself, and then just went to the toilet and then bolted out of there. But he did love a food, Gaz. So, mate, he was a funny bloke, Gary.
I heard that Gary Harley, like, if he went out, every 5 minutes he would ask for like another can of Coke or a glass of Coke.
Yeah, pretty much, mate. Which is probably why he was so big.
But yeah, he seemed like the voice of, always calling the game, and then so that's great, Gary Harley, great call up. Yeah, so you've done that for all that time, and on the family side as well, you have 2 sons and 1 daughter.
Yeah, that's correct.
I read that your daughter was the youngest to be in the Knights cheer squad. Is that true?
Yeah, she was. So she was in the cheer squad for a number of years there. Yeah, which was great. She really enjoyed that.
And both your boys, one plays union and one plays league, right?
Yeah, that's right. So Ryan he's my oldest son, he plays with South Newcastle, Rugby League, and then my youngest bloke, Matt, plays for Merewether Carlton, Rugby League.
Oh, very, very nice. All right, I'll have to go out and watch them. All right, so I've got a couple of quick questions here. I just want you to give me like a very, very short, random, just short answers. So are you ready for these quick answers?
Yes, mate.
All right. Who will win the grand final this year?
I'm going to say Canberra.
Canberra. Your opinion on the one referee for this year?
Very good.
Mm-hmm. The bunker?
Not a fan.
Not being able to rule on forward passes?
I think that's fine.
Callan Ponga?
Sensation.
Yes. All right. And Mark, what does the future hold for Marc Glanville?
Well, mate, hopefully a good life for the rest of it. Not too many sores or operations needed, etc. So, no, look, just looking forward to watching the kids get older and continuing their sport, etc. So, been really fortunate enough that I've loved living in Newcastle. I've been in Newcastle now about 30 years, so longer than I've lived in Wagga, which my in-laws live down there as well. But yeah, really love living in Newcastle, and I'm almost a Novocastrian, mate. I'm almost a near that.
I think you can pass as a Novocastrian. Definitely. What advice would you give to an inspiring rugby league player, that's coming through the juniors? What advice would you give to them?
I think for that person, that if it's a goal they want to achieve, write it down, what they need to achieve, put it on your wall, and make sure you train the hardest you can train at every opportunity. Because I think, I know from my point of view, I mean, when I first went to Sydney to play with St George, I thought I was fit enough. I was only 18 and I'd played first grade down in the bush, so I thought, this will be all right, it won't be too hard. And mate, that first couple of training sessions, I struggled massively, and I thought, okay, then I've got to train every day and I've got to be the fittest I can be. So I made sure I was the fittest person, or if not, one of the fittest people within that team or within the club. So I made sure I won everything or was in the top couple. And I did that from then really onwards.
And sorry, what do you think about the modern game now? You played in like the real tough sort of version of rugby league. So what do you think of the modern game now?
Oh, look, I think I enjoy it, mate. I still love watching it. There's certain rules that I struggle a bit with. I mean, they're trying to make, which I like the one referee, mate. I think that's going to help.
Yes.
And especially with that penalty, if the ref can rather than penalty, do a 6 again. So it'll hopefully still speed up things. But look, the game is as tough as ever, I think, and there's probably not as many high shots or those sort of things that used to go on when I first started playing. So which is probably
like a facial massage or something like that,
which is probably a good thing. So you want kids still playing the game, and hopefully the parents will let them do that. So I think it's a great spectacle. I'm can't wait till it's back on TV tomorrow night.
Yeah, definitely. And the Knights for this season, you know?
Yeah, look, I think they can make the 8. I don't know whether they can win it, but you know, it all depends again on injuries, and you know, if they can have as least amount of injuries as possible, then that'll enable them to keep their best team on the paddock, and if they can do that, they'll go a long way into hopefully go towards winning it.
Well, Mark, thank you very much for your time. I know you're a super busy man. Just quickly, do you have any social media or anything you want to promote, endorsements?
Not really, mate, apart from Triple M, obviously. Listening to Triple M Newcastle when the footy's on. There's myself, Michael Hagan, Frank Barrett doing the call this year, so we'll be calling all the Knights games. Make sure you tune in to us.
All right. Triple M now, is it?
Yeah, Triple M Newcastle, 182.9. Yep.
Awesome. All right, mate. Mark, you're one of my heroes growing up. You gave me a lot of good memories playing for the Knight. You know, once again, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming onto the show.
No, okay. Happy to do it, mate.
Okay, then. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, mate. Bye.